On my last video I said if we got 1000 likes I'd play with Colossal Dreadmaw in Vintage. So in this video we are setting the simple challenge. I must win with Colossal Dreadmaw. This challenge was hard to approach. While Dreadmaw is one of the best cards of all time, being a 6-mana 6/6 with Trample, it is definitely hard to cast in the most disruptive format available to us. So I decided to go with the idea that I need to disrupt my opponent more than they want to disrupt me. This means we're playing 4 Force of Will, 4 Force of Vigor, and 4 Wasteland. To get these Dreadmaws down, I need to trip up my opponent. For the mid game, we do have Deathrite Shamans and Planeswalkers to get us some value while we continue to draw cards and set up for the Dreadmaw. While in practice, this sounds good. Vintage is a format full of fast kills, cheap counterspells, and degenerate permanents that are very hard to deal with. However, ignoring all that, let's see if I can win with the Dreadmaw. To start the first round, on the play we have an amazing turn 1 Collector Oof Deathrite Shaman in hand. The opponent mulligans to 6, and we slam both of our creatures and pass the turn. The opponent starts off the game by evoking a Grief, taking our Force of Vigor, and leading with a Bazaar of Baghdad. This is one of the most powerful lands in Vintage, being a free way to draw 2 cards and then discard 3. Of course the opponent instantly activates it, discards 3 cards, and then casts a Hollow One. Fortunately, we have the Deathrite Shaman in play to stop any graveyard shenanigans, but this Hollow One is going to become a problem if we can't find a removal spell for it. Finding a red and 6 off the top is great, but we have to exile that Stinkweed Imp in the graveyard or we will just lose to their Dredge strategy. I play my land, pass back, and they get an Ichorid back by exiling a creature from their graveyard. Attacking in for 7, I do think about blocking, but it's just not useful enough in this spot, and we want to keep the Collector Roof around to double block with the other one in our hand. But like a beast, we draw Hull Breacher. This is the perfect card here to find because it prevents the opponent from drawing a card that isn't in their draw step. AKA, this completely prevents Bazaar's activated ability and just forces them to discard 3 cards. After attacking for 2 with the Collector Roof, the opponent activates Bazaar in our end step, so we flash in Hull Breacher in response. Yes, in Vintage, Dredge plays Force of Will, so this Hull Breacher is not resolving and they get to discard some cards. To my luck, they don't manage to find a Dredger in the top 4 cards of their library, meaning they can only get back the Ichorid and attack in for 7. Off the top, we find a Force of Will. That's not the best here, we don't have a blue card, and Dredge doesn't play spells that you normally want to counter, so I decide to just attack in for 2 and eat the Ichorid on the opponent's upkeep. It's awkward here that we're at 9 life and the Hollow One is hitting us down to 5, but it's important that Deathrite Shaman is still gaining us 2 life per turn and also preventing them from doing Dredge stuff. Oh yeah, even though we're playing a Teamer deck, we are splashing for Demonic Tutor, and that's with only 1 Underground Sea and the Mox Jet because we do need black mana for Deathrite Shaman's other activated ability. In the meantime, I cast the other Collector Oof so that we can try and double block this Hollow One and pray that they don't hit a Dredger again from their Bazaar. Somehow they did not hit a Dredger, so they just grief my hand and take the Demonic Tutor and pass back. From here, it's quite smooth sailing. What we can do is activate Deathrite Shaman every turn, and with this Misty Rainforest off the top, we can now activate Wrenn and 6 every turn. So everything's going to be ticking up, we're going to be gaining life from the Deathrite Shaman, life is going to be easier. I'm going to speed this up because it's literally just my opponent activates Bazaar, I exile the card that they discard, and then they attack in with the Hollow One and had a Hollow One to follow up with. Now, while they do have a Hollow One on the table that we can't kill, these 2 Deathrite Shamans gain 2 life per turn each, this Wrenn and 6 is ticking up, we have the Force of Vigor in the graveyard that we can eventually retrace with the Wrenn and 6 ultimate, so we're definitely winning this game. As you can see here, we pass back the turn they attack in, then we gain 4 life on their end step, but we end up finding the Force of Vigor anyways in our draw step. Now we get the last land out of our deck, plus our Wrenn and 6, and on their main phase, we'd finally Force of Vigor the Hollow One, and they concede the game. Okay, pause for a second. Technically, Colossal Dreadmaw won this game, and that's because what I could do is activate Deathrite Shaman every turn, not kill the opponent, eventually draw Colossal Dreadmaw, and cast and attack with it. That counts as a Colossal Dreadmaw win, right? I had them locked out of the game. Well, okay, if you don't count that as a Colossal Dreadmaw win, we do end up winning this match just because I feel like the opponent gave up. They turn 1 griefed me, took the Deathrite Shaman, and then we managed to use the Boseiju and the Strip Mine to destroy both of their Bazaars, and they just gave up. So yeah, this was quite an easy first round win. Let's actually see some gameplay with Colossal Dreadmaw though. Going into the next round, we got paired against the same player. I was quite confused by this, but I ended up keeping this hand anyways, because we had the Wasteland for the Bazaar, and Force of Will and Force of Vigor to disrupt them. I start off the game with a Ponder, and we just have to shuffle this because we need to hit our land drops, and having a Colossal Dreadmaw and an Oof in our top cards is just not good. However, we shuffle and find the Dreadmaw. Now, I'm not to spoil anything, but this Dreadmaw should hit the table. We just Wasteland go, and the opponent surprises me because they have a Scalding Tarn this time. So Magical Line must have paired me against them because they went into a new tournament as a new player with a different deck. But yeah, just a bit weird. Anyways, we find a Force of Vigor. That is not a land, we just have to pass back. The opponent starts off their turn with the Preordain, hits their land drop, and just passes back. We finally find a land, so now we can slam this Deathrite Shaman and try to ramp up our mana. From here, a load of nothing begins to happen. The opponent just keeps playing their lands and passing back, and we keep drawing lands, which is where we want to be. Now we rip the 6th mana source off the top of the deck. We now have 6 mana on the table. While I don't know if it's the best play to cast Colossal Dreadmaw here, I came here to cast Colossal Dreadmaw, so let's slam it on the table. Holy shit. Okay, well the opponent ends up killing us with Doomsday because we're tapped out for our 6 mana 6/6 trample, which lets them cast Thassa's Oracle for lethal as they can make their library very small. Yeah, maybe casting a 6 mana 6/6 is not great against a combo deck. What's even worse is in game 2, they kill me with Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation because I managed to get a Hull Breacher down on the table so they couldn't draw any more cards. So we swiftly lost against Doomsday. From here, this challenge was becoming very difficult. Despite being able to cast Colossal Dreadmaw in my next round, the opponent had Swords to Plowshares and a Flusterstorm to fight back on my Force of Will, making it too awkward for me to counter back because the Urza constructs were gonna just be so big. I ended up losing the match because the opponent managed to counter my Ancestral Recall and resolve an Ancestral Recall of their own. To beat me while I was down, I had to mulligan to 4 in game 1 of the last round of the league. I just didn't have enough cards to beat them, and they mana screwed me with Wasteland with a lot of pressure on the board. In the 3rd game, Richard Garfield was making me feel like I was destined to fail this challenge by making me lose with 2 Colossal Dreadmaws left in my hand as I got beaten down by a Hollow One and a Rootwalla. I felt like there was no hope for me to complete this challenge. But I thought to myself, I'm gonna give it one more match. Let's do this. Ancestral Recall, Mox, Collector Oof, we can find Disruption, we can work with this hand. I start off the game with a Tropical Island and a Mox with the intention to Ancestral Recall on the upkeep. That is exactly what we do, and it resolves, finding us a Dreadmaw and 2 Force of Wills, exactly what we need. The opponent starts off with the Bazaar of Baghdad, discarding 3 cards and just passing back the turn. Finding a land off the top is nice, and we preordain into an Oko and a Colossal Dreadmaw. As we need a Wasteland to interact with the opponent, I bought them both. Unfortunately, we don't find it there, but with the second preordain, we do find it off the top of the deck. We're definitely going to top the Wasteland. I decide not to top the Mox Emerald because we have a load of mana in our hand, and we will need more interaction if we do use this Force of Will, so I'm digging for more spells. The opponent instantly activates their Bazaar, discarding a Vengevine. They then lead with a Black Lotus. Now normally I don't counter Lotus, but here we have to, because if not, they will use the green mana from this Lotus to cast creatures to get back the Vengevine, which we cannot counter. We're rewarded when they just cast a Hollow One and pass back the turn. Drawing a Misty is very awkward, and we also don't have green mana to cast this Collector Roof, but I'm not sure we would do that anyways because that would turn off our Mox Jet to be able to cast the Dreadmaw. We pass back the turn and they have another Bazaar. Very awkward. With the Hollow One bashing in and no mana, we're really not able to cast anything. Like an absolute beast, we rip Black Lotus off the top so we can slam this Colossal Dreadmaw. Oh my gosh, we just need them to not cast any creatures so that the Vengevines don't come back. Just hold and pray. To make our life a bit awkward, they activate Bazaar. They don't get creatures, but they put more Vengevines into the yard. So now we just gotta play our Collector Oof, attack him with our Colossal Dreadmaw, and hope that we can hold. Yeah, it's really hard to hold against a deck that has a load of creatures and is drawing a lot of cards every turn. So all the Vengevines come back, we chump block, and yeah, we whiff our draw. Going into boarding, we want all the Tabernacles, Ley Lines, and the Hull Breacher, and we take out all the clunky instants that don't do anything. Going into game 2, on the play, we have a very close opening hand, but we just can't keep it because we have no fetch land for the Wrenn and 6, no blue source for the Time Walk, and no interaction for a Bazaar. But I think Richard Garfield's on our side when we mulligan to the absolute nuts. Ancestral Recall plus Black Lotus plus mana plus Colossal Dreadmaw plus removal spell for a Bazaar. Let's bottom the Underground Sea and Ancestral Recall on their upkeep again. Okay, if we don't win with this hand, with Colossal Dreadmaw, I have lost all hope in Magic. The opponent starts off with a Bazaar, we've got the Wasteland so we're not too concerned about it. What's even better is they have no creatures, pass back, and we find a mana source. So we start off with Wastelanding the opponent, play our Mox, and say go. To make things even better for us, the opponent plays 3 life to return the cards from their graveyard to their hand, and just play a Hex Drinker. It's time to slam Colossal Dreadmaw with Force of Will backup. We finally did it, a concession with Colossal Dreadmaw on the table, but I'm not satisfied with that. I want a match win with this Colossal Dreadmaw. To start game 3, we got a Strip Mine for the Bazaar, we got a Black Lotus to cast this Dreadmaw, and we got a Leyline of the Void to disrupt their graveyard. We couldn't ask for more, let's keep this hand. I only put 1 Leyline of the Void into play to play around Force of Vigor, and the opponent begins the game with a Bazaar. All they do is activate it, discard 3 useless cards, and pass back the turn. We find a polluted Delta, but we gotta get the Bazaar out of the way first. We pass back the turn, the opponent just has a Boseiju and plays a Hex Drinker. Wanting to add as much mana as possible, we play the Deathrite Shaman and ship it back. The opponent instantly attacks in for 2, we take the damage and they play another Hex Drinker. Now it's time to play the Colossal Dreadmaw with Force of Will backup. We can easily win this game, we just need to hold and for them to not find a Bazaar so that they're too slow to win this game, and we need them to not have a Guy's Cradle so they can level up the Hex Drinkers. The opponent just pays 1 mana to level up and passes back, and then on my upkeep they use a Force of Vigor to destroy the Leyline. I'm not concerned about that because there's no Bazaar in play, so I let it resolve. With my heart pounding through my chest, I top deck a Wasteland, and I know that this can lock up the game as long as they don't find another land off the top, so I get rid of their Boseiju and bash in with the Dreadmaw. From here, the opponent takes a draw step and concedes the game because of Colossal Dreadmaw. I think that we can say that this is a challenge accomplished. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to subscribe to see more videos like this and leave a challenge in the comments down below and I'll pick my favorite one to do next.